Have you ever seen...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're drinking water. But I'm asking you a question. You don't have to be able to talk to think about it. You can answer me after. You're a weirdo for drinking water anyway.
I
Who
didn't
does
know
that?
that you were
Who
recording.
drinks water? And of course we're recording.
Okay. Anyway,
have you ever seen like a really creepy picture? Or like a picture that was taken right before a disaster or something like that?
I can't remember. There was like a celebrity. I'll insert the photo if I can find it, but it was like she took a picture right outside of her apartment, like right before the Twin Towers went down. Yep.
Dang.
And then I think there's a few of those actually. I don't know if they're like legit right before.
Yeah.
And then of course like the fake scary picture that we saw in one of our last scary compilations with like the dark figure with the eyes.
Oh,
I don't think that one was real, but that's what
stuff.
comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some like news stuff where people were like taken out or like assassinated or like different things like right before, but I'm having trouble finding any like really like scary pictures. I mean, of course, the random crime scene photo pops into a documentary.
To find these things?
No, it's just this video, like Mr. Ballin, of course. Now I've heard somebody call him Mr. Balin as well. I refuse to believe that. I'm going to be saying Ballin until
corrects you.
Someone corrects. If he corrects me, then what am I going to
because
say
at the
about
end of his videos, he says you can find me at Mr. Ballin.
Yeah, it's that Don Shipley guy. I think called him Mr. Balin, the one who hunts down the fake Navy SEALs and stuff. You remember I showed you that video of him and his wife arguing that was really funny?
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe.
I think they're funny. But
no, I'm saying, like, maybe he's just...
Maybe he just said it wrong.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he verified, like, people had asked him about Mr. Ballin, and he was like, fucking, yeah, he's a SEAL.
Yeah.
Like, why would he be huge in saying that if he wasn't, kind of thing. Like... And said, he was a badass dude and everything.
So you heard it here. He's legit.
You heard it here. He's legit as fuck, man. Like, as legit as it gets. Too legit to quit, obviously, because the man pumps out content like fucking... I don't think Disney can compete with this guy. But he also was shouted out by Tom DeLonge at an Angels and Airwaves concert. He went to an Angels... Yeah, it was on his Instagram. Yeah, Mr. Ballin's got a badass Instagram. All his social media is fucking legit. But yeah, Tom DeLonge from Blink-182, who is also, the front man for Angels and Airwaves, boxcar racer.
Get to it, tell me!
Called out, he was like at a show and he was like, hey, Mr. Ballin's the fucking man, and like all this shit. Like, yeah.
So like Mr. Ballin was at a show and Tom DeLonge
called him out.
And then,
yeah. How fucking cool is that? Yeah.
Because he would know him.
Oh, yeah. Aliens exist, my friends. But anyway, he's been collaborating with a lot of fucking people here recently. Why wouldn't he? Hell, he's been gracious enough to give us his blessing, which is amazing. But there has been stuff in the rumor mill, and they finally came out, I guess, in this video and said it, that he's collaborating with Mr. Beast. So who knows what these guys could get involved in together.
Yeah.
I mean, could be really interesting. So I'm ready to jump into this video. This photo was taken seconds before disaster.
All right.
Ugh.
Stick around to hear about what I'm doing with Mr. Beast. Today's story sounds like a terrifying urban legend that couldn't possibly be true, but it is true, and it happened recently. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload 1 or 2 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button is running late for their flight, offer to give them a ride to the airport, but make sure you first sneak several 3.5-ounce containers of toothpaste into their luggage. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's story. In 2017, 27-year-old Lydia Makarchuk left her home country of Ukraine and moved to Bracknell, which is a town just outside of London. Shortly after moving into her new apartment, Lydia went out and got a job as an accountant at a local hotel, and then after that, Lydia pretty much swore off her social life and instead just focused exclusively on working hard and saving money. The one reprieve she got from work was going to church on Sundays. 2 years later, Lydia was at her church enjoying the coffee hour that always followed the Sunday sermon when another member of her church, who she didn't really speak to, this 41-year-old man named Norbert Varga, approached her and kind of awkwardly complimented her shoes. And she was so flattered by this that it opened up a friendly conversation between the two of them. And during this conversation, Lydia was pleasantly surprised to find out that Norbert was an expat too. An expat is someone who lives outside of their native country. Norbert had moved to the UK in 2018, so that's 1 year after Lydia had moved to the UK, and he came from Hungary, which shares a border with Ukraine. And just like Lydia, when he got to the UK, he kind of put all his energy into his work and trying to save money. He was a radio technician and a photographer. And so the two spend the rest of this coffee hour chatting and enjoying each other's company. And then afterwards, when they left the church and they both got home, they both found themselves thinking about the other. There was clearly an attraction there. And so the following Sunday, they both very eagerly rushed back to church in order to spend more time together. And sure enough, during that coffee hour, they spent the whole time together just chatting it up. And then afterwards, they exchanged phone numbers and made plans to get together outside of church. They were going to go on a date. And so the rest, as they say, is history. 2 years after Norbert complimented Lydia's shoes, they got married in Bracknell. And while the wedding was great, unfortunately, none of Lydia's family members, who were all in Ukraine, none of them could attend the actual wedding. And so the newlywed couple decided the way they would handle that is their honeymoon would be spent in Ukraine. That way Lydia's family could celebrate their wedding as well. For a variety of reasons, this honeymoon trip to Ukraine kept getting pushed back, but finally in September of 2021, everything lined up, everyone was available, and so Norbert and Lydia rushed to the airport and they hopped on a flight. And during this flight to
really
Ukraine,
recent.
Lydia remembers being so excited, specifically.
I think I know this story. I think I read about it in the news.
Don't tell me anything. But as soon as they said this man came over and complimented her shoes, I don't trust him.
No, I don't even think it's something like that.
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
Don't tell me.
Anyway.
I have no clue.
I think I know. I think I read about this recently.
About her husband finally getting a chance to spend some time with her 29-year-old younger brother, Miroslav. Lydia was very close with her brother, and so it mattered to her greatly that he and her husband had a good relationship. But to that point, because of the great physical distance between the UK and Ukraine, the two had really not had that much interaction, and so they really didn't know each other very well. And so this trip was really important to Lydia, and Miroslav, he really picked up on that because he put together this camping trip for the end of their stay in Ukraine, where he knew he'd be able to step aside with Norbert and chat with him and get to know him a little bit. And so that was kind of like the fail-safe, where if he and Norbert did not get a chance to speak all week because they were visiting with so many people, they would have a chance to at the end of the week on this camping trip. So after a few hours of flying, Lydia and Norbert touch down in Ukraine, and they make their way to Lydia's family's house where they're going to be staying for the week. And that night, and for the next several days, the couple was swamped with several family reunions and meetups with old friends that hadn't seen Lydia in years. And so Norbert and Miroslav were not getting any time to themselves, and Lydia really knew that. And so she and Norbert began looking forward to this camping trip because that not only represented a kind of peaceful break from the chaos of all these reunions, but it also did represent the one chance they knew Miroslav and Norbert would get to interact with each other. And so finally, September 15th, the end of the week, it came, and it was time to go on this camping trip. And so Lydia and Norbert and Miroslav and 9 other family members, they all packed up their tents and their camping belongings, and they loaded up a couple of cars, and they drove over to the base of the Carpathian mountain range. This mountain range, which stretches for nearly 1,000 miles across Eastern and Central Europe, are very popular amongst tourists because it's stunningly beautiful. Everything is green and lush, and there are these crystal clear lakes and breathtaking waterfalls and all these amazing animals running around, and there's no mosquitoes. and they have these really cool hikes that bring you up to these very impressive overlooks. And so that night, Miroslav had made reservations for this one campsite, this very popular campsite that was up in this clearing, not too far up the mountain, and it had this great view down to the forest below, and because it was in a clearing, it had this unobstructed view up to the sky where in this area, you could look up and just see stars in every direction. And so when Lydia and the rest of this group arrived in the parking lot of this mountain range, they were all really excited to get up to this campsite and just enjoy being there. And so they park their cars, they get their gear out, they find the trailhead, and then they begin hiking up the mountain. And about 2 hours later, they arrive at this clearing. They find their campsite, which was marked by this small fire pit underneath a couple of trees. And so they go over and they set their tents up, and some people go out and get some firewood. And then before long, a fire was made, and this group of 12 people that had not seen each other in so long, they just sat down and began enjoying each other's company. They put tea on, they were swapping stories. It was really just this wonderful time. And then around 8 p.m., the sun started to set, at which point this huge group just stopped and enjoyed this beautiful sunset. And then once the sun had gone down, there were 2 kids that were there on this trip. And so they were put to bed in their tent. And then the remaining 10 adults just kind of hung out by the fire and enjoyed each other's company. And it was actually during this second half of the night that Norbert and Miroslav finally really got a chance to just chat with each other. So for about an hour, they were talking to each other, and Lydia is just watching this happen, and she couldn't be happier. This is like the perfect ending to this trip. And then around 9 p.m., Norbert stands up. Lydia sees him stand up, and he tells the group he's going to run back to his tent, which was a ways away from the campfire, and he was going to get his camera. And so Lydia said, okay, no problem. And she remembers watching him walk off into the distance, because when you're at the campfire, if you're looking away from the campfire, everything is pitch black in that direction. And so she watches him disappear into the darkness, and then she and her brother and everyone else just kind of turn back towards the campfire. And then all she remembers about what happens next is she heard a whistling sound. And at first, it was very faint. But it started to get very, very loud, and when it got loud, she tried to kind of figure out where it was, but before she could, suddenly something hit her in the face, predominantly hit her in the nose. And as soon as it did, she went blind, she went deaf, and then she felt herself on the ground, and she has no idea what's going on, and all she can remember thinking is, oh my God, something horrible has happened to me. I might die. I don't know what's happening, but I might die.
This is what I thought it was.
And so she started praying for herself to survive whatever was happening to her, and then her hearing started to come back just a little bit. Her vision was still totally blurred. She could only kind of tell where the fire was because it was bright, but her hearing, it started to come back, and that's when she heard moaning coming from somewhere near her. And so she's thinking, okay, whatever horrible thing has happened to me has happened to other people too. And so instead of just praying for herself, she began praying for everyone who was at this campsite. And so as her hearing is getting louder and louder, and she's hearing more and more moaning and crying happening all around her, she suddenly hears her husband screaming her name. Her vision is still gone, but she knows it's him, and he lands right behind her, and he grabs her, and he's just repeating her name over and over and over again. And then Lydia manages to kind of choke out to her husband, what happened? And there's a pause, and then Norbert says to her, it's bad. It's really bad.
That doesn't tell me shit.
It would turn out their campsite was on a battlefield from World War I. And buried underneath the soil, right under their fire pit, was an unexploded bomb from World War I. Meaning, for over 100 years, countless campers have arrived at this campsite and lit fires on top of this bomb that they couldn't see. And each fire gradually eroded the outer metal casing of this explosive until finally that night in September, with Lydia and 11 of her loved ones nearby, their little fire finally was it. It pushed through that last little bit of the casing, and it ignited the bomb, and it detonated. That whistling that she heard was the sound of the fire finally cutting through that casing and being exposed to the fire. And then that thing that struck her in the face, that hit her right on the nose, that was almost certainly a piece of the bomb itself, so shrapnel that was cutting through her face. And then the moaning she heard was primarily her brother, who was right next to her. Lydia would be gravely wounded, but she would survive. As for her brother and another man who was not named, they would not survive. Here is a picture that was taken of the group literally minutes before this bomb detonated.
Dude. Oh my God.
In 2015, I was in the military,
We need
and
to
me
pause
and my
this.
unit
I
were
need to-
sent
I just-
overseas to do some training. Now,
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. I was trying to tell you about this. and you
I
were,
just
I
was-
just don't even give a fuck. But I
I was doing something else.
I sent the story to my best friend and was like, dude, what the actual fuck? On their
How does
honeymoon.
that even happen?
Well, I mean, I have a friend of mine who is a really big fan of traveling, and he has also been a journalist in the middle of wars and civil uprisings and shit. He was one of my history teachers in high school, and he's actually like put himself in some of the most dangerous things that you can put yourself in outside of signing up for the military. I was in the military for 4 years, and he's been in way more shit. I never was in the shit at all. Like, far from it, unless you're talking about literally, then yes, I did have to deal with feces from time to time. But this guy was in the middle of like the shit going on in Ukraine and Russia as a reporter and shit.
Right.
He said certain parts of Europe and definitely Vietnam, I'm not going off the trail. I'm not going near any of these sites where shit historic, because there's just so much ordnance unaccounted for. To this day, people who are in like Vietnam and shit will tell you don't fucking go in certain spots. You just can't, because there's just so much of it. So many booby traps and like landmines and but World War One, Jesus
Right.
Christ, I mean, that's like, 1910 and shit, like that's so long. And like he said, it's this popular tourist destination and on a honeymoon. That's where I read the headline, honeymoon tragedy, World War One. I was like, this has to be from forever ago. And it was like, it was 2017. I was like, what the?
I watched too much crime, like true crime shit, and I was like, he likes her shoes. He's
husband,
he's
yeah.
gonna fucking do some weird shit to her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is fucked up to say now, because
No,
that's awful. I
is an
so
unfucking believable
horrible.
tragedy. Unbelievable. I thought about, how I made that one video about that old guy that went in and shot his the manager of his apartment building in the leg for not fixing his stuff. Weird and wild happenings interest me, obviously, but I thought about doing a video about this because it is just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like that thing about like the shit that really happens out there. You couldn't even make it up, or you wouldn't believe
That's
it.
insane. That is insane.
It is insane, and it is so tragic. That is
And
super
they hadn't
tragic.
been together. And
I
they
mean,
were all
imagine
just
the
chilling
acceptance for
and-
that situation, right? Imagine trying to cope with that. What?
And thank God her husband needed to go to his. I thought he was gonna get fucked
yeah.
up by some skinwalker
Right.
bullshit.
Well, that's
something.
because this
I
man
know,
knows
I
how to tell a
know.
story. Anyway, let's see what this Mr. Beast collaboration's all about. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you rallied back? Yeah.
Normally, training for us consisted of doing things both on the land and also in the oceans. But when we got to this particular country, we were told by this country that we were not allowed to go in their waterways unless we had head-to-toe complete full-body protection. And even then, it was still pretty risky. And so naturally, we said, why? And they said, because our waterways are too toxic. They are too polluted. We were skeptical because previously we had dove and been in waters that were really, really hazardous. And so the idea that some trash was going to stop us from doing any training in the water seemed far-fetched. But when we got there and we walked down to the edge and looked out at the water, we were shocked. The water looked black from all the oil and pollution, and amidst this black sludge were thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of plastic just bobbing on the surface in all directions. It was truly staggering. But what really amazed me was nobody was trying to fix this. There was no attempts being made to clean up this waterway. In fact, the opposite was happening. Because this waterway had gotten so bad, people had just kind of given up on it and just continued to dump trash and pollutants into this waterway. And so we would go out on our boats into this water. We would not go in it, but we'd be out in the water and we would look down and we would just see dead sea lions and dead birds and other dead marine animals just floating on the surface. and they had all most likely died from either eating plastic or getting trapped in plastic or consuming some other toxic pollutant. I mean, literally, their homes have become a death trap because of this plastic and pollution crisis. And so a few weeks ago, when I was approached by Mr. Beast and his team to potentially help support their massive ocean cleanup that they call Team Seas, I immediately said yes. They are trying to raise $30 million by the end of this year in order to remove 30 million pounds of plastic and trash from the oceans, as well as from rivers and also from beaches. This project has the potential to truly change the planet. But we need your help. Every donation counts. I mean it. If you donate even just a single dollar to Team Seas, a full pound of trash and plastic will get removed from the ocean, guaranteed. So if you want to be a part of Team Seas with me and Mr. Beast and hundreds of other content creators and YouTubers and people all around the planet, go to teamseas.org today and give what you can. Thank you. So that's going to do it, guys. If you got something out of today's episode and you haven't done this already, the next time the like button is late for their flight, offer to give them a ride to the airport, but make sure you sneak several 3.5-ounce containers of toothpaste into their luggage. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly 1 or 2 video uploads. We are now selling merchandise like flannels and hats and sweatshirts and all sorts of stuff. If you're interested, go to shopmrballin.com. If you want to learn about upcoming deals and promotions for our shop, go to our shop's Instagram page. The username is shopmrballin. If you want to get in touch with me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. My username
Ballin.
for both platforms is the same. It's Mr. Ballin. I also have tons of content
Don
over
Shipley
on TikTok where my username is also Mr. Ballin. We also have a second YouTube channel just called Mr. Ballin Shorts where we post random short videos and lost episodes. We also have a Facebook page where we post condensed versions of the longer episodes you see on YouTube, and that is just called Mr. Ballin. If you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit just called Mr. Ballin. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, or some combination, just know that I really appreciate your support, and until next time, that's going to do it. See ya.
You gonna be okay?
Jeez. I was like, man, why is he trying to do 2 stories in one? This is tragic enough. I just smacked myself in the face. It's tragic enough. Like, I don't need to hear 2 tragedies in one. And then I'm like, okay, he turned it around. Let's save the planet.
The first one, we can't really do much about. But the second one, I think we can add a way to
a link or something.
Yeah, or maybe even our monetization for this video can go to donate towards.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we're not a huge channel. We're not. Personally don't make a lot.
Hey, we broke. All right.
Let's just. But I am gonna go donate at least some money to, because I feel strongly about that, and I can't do shit to change the planet, but give a little bit of money to people who can, you know?
Yeah, for the people organizing that shit. Yeah. Which, of course, you know, not that I don't trust the word of either of those individuals, but we can look at what it is and what's going on. And at least, you know, since this is a video that's highly involved in it, we can at least make this video go towards, you know, any kind of help that could come from it.
Yeah.
Because it is a bad problem. Even around here in the hills of southwestern Virginia and northeast Tennessee, you'll be driving around these back roads and see people's trash thrown in the creeks and things like that. And it's beautiful out here. So it's really stark contrast when you see garbage here. Like on the city streets and stuff, it kind of blends in.
My dad was always very adamant about, like, taking care and, like, recycling and reusing. And I remember being in a car with a family member that I was never in the car with, and he just didn't give a fuck about nothing, and literally just, like, opened his door and just was like, whew.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'd never seen anybody litter like that, and I was like 10 years old.
Yeah, and there are people who literally do not care out here, and they will just take whole bags of trash, throw it over a hill, throw it in a creek and whatever. And it's a lot. There's a lot of garbage in the creeks and waterways in our area, which is shit because the coal companies have already just fucked them up enough.
There's a lot of people who go out and do cleanup crews. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's not like a crazy amount, but it's enough. Like, don't do that.
Yeah. But anyway, it is a cause that we understand and
Care about.
Yeah, care about. So, I'm an emotional roller coaster or wreck from that roller coaster now.
The first,
the second, the third. It's all been not fun and disheartening to a certain degree. But here is the for those people who lost their lives in that incident, I guess one piece that can be taken from the tragedy is that they were with people that they loved. They were having a wonderful time in this beautiful place and got to see these beautiful things. At the very least, they were living before they died.
Right.
Really living.
It just
still.
feels like harsh to even like watch this almost because it was so recent. Like that's
yeah, but I mean,
I know
it is what it is, and
Yeah.
this is like humanity,
I
right?
know.
And there's just life, and it happens, and then it's over, So there are all these different things in between that are just unfucking believable. What a trip,
what a fucking way to have to go out.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Well, I feel the same way about many things. Who could have ever thought that fucking Elvis Presley was going to die on the shitter? The king on a throne. I mean, that's pretty bizarre, but this was just one of those, what the fuck? It would be different if this was a new spot they had found.
Right.
But the fact that it was like, yeah, everybody's like, oh, it's great, go here. I mean, Jesus, they didn't do anything wrong.
No.
They literally did not make a mistake.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't matter.
And it's like,
You don't have to.
like fortune tellers and shit like that. And it's like, oh, how do I die? Well, let me tell you. That's insane.
Or even worse. I'm just not going to tell you. That's even worse. That to me is even worse. If it was so bad that they don't even want you to know. Oh shit, he's got one called Abducted in Plain Sight. I want to watch that now. Anyway, there's more Mr. Ballin videos out there, and if you have not watched them, what's wrong with you? Go check
subscribe.
them out. I want you to go subscribe to his channel. Check out all that social media. Like I said, and like he showed
Every
you.
single platform available.
It is a robust choice of these many selections of social media out there. It's pretty badass.
We need to get on our shit.
We need to get on our shit. He's an inspiration in many ways.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ballin. You're the fucking man. And we would enjoy it if you were to subscribe to our channel, join our Discord.
I think that's all that we have.
Give us some recommendations. No, we got a Facebook too, and a Twitch.
And we're going to start a TikTok.
And we're going to start a TikTok.
Send us some recommendations either in the comments or on our Discord, which we will have linked in the description if I can get
Along
the words
with this
out.
video, so you can go watch it for yourself if you haven't already, which hopefully you already have before
Or
you got
donate
here.
to the cause.
Yeah, donate to this cause.
you
It
have
seems to be great.
The ability to do so. And
Fresh
if
water
not,
is a nice thing.
Totally understand.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's going to do it.
gonna do
We're going to do the real high five, the one I showed you.
Okay.
The real legitimate high
Okay.
five.
I'm going to try.
Hold your hand up.
Oh, wait. I start here.
Other side. Right.
Other side.
You got to give me a target so I can...
Oh. That didn't work.
There we go. See y'all.